Welcome, everyone, to Magical Aspirations, a podcast for magical people where we aspire to gather all of the knowledge that magic has to offer. It's a place to illuminate and demystify all things magical. Reverend Raven here. Caw. Good morning. Who is with me today?
Good morning. Annalisa here.
Hello, it's Adreyauna.
Yes. Good morning, ladies. I am super excited to be back on with y'all. It's always great whenever we get to spend time chatting together, and we have so many juicy topics to talk about. Today, we've decided to circle back around and talk about divination. This is a skill that brought us all together initially as we took our tarot class from Michelle that we had spoke with last week. So it is a topic that is near and dear to each of our hearts. I think that we each have a few different decks out in front of us because we are card lovers here. What you got in front of you, Annalisa?
The first thing that I've got in front of me is actually an oracle deck made by our very, very own Adreyauna. It's called the Love Note to Self Oracle deck, and I really, really like this one. One of my favorite parts about it is that the first time Adreyauna put it out, she gave the option for us to put our names in it. And I know not all of the cards have my name on them, only some of them do. But I always know that when a card with my name comes across, that it's literally like the universe going, are you paying attention? This one's really, really important. So I actually pulled 3 cards from this deck this morning, and they just have little short sayings on them. The first one is self-care is multidimensional, and it changes based on your needs. The second one was Annalisa, your desire to shift is the invitation and permission you need to make that change, as well as advocating for Annalisa is magic. I don't think I could have picked any 3 better cards for today.
That's super cool. I love that the cards have your name on them.
I mean, I know I created the words, but listening to them back is damn.
Damn, girl, you having another Mr. Miyagi moment here. They're really awesome. It was not too long ago, I was sharing them with some of the people that I work with, and I was explaining what oracle cards were and stuff like that. And one of the cards, I wish I had pulled it out. I moved them away from me now. I can't find it. But one of my coworkers said, I was talking about how the name will call me out and stuff like that. And I happened to split open the deck to just somewhere in the middle. And one of my coworkers said, oh, does it say Annalisa, chill the fuck out? And not in those words, but that's exactly what the card said. That it basically said something about Annalisa, take a breath and release that anxious thought to the universe or whatever. And I was like, damn.
Wow.
I think that's my favorite thing about the cards. You can't make this stuff up. And time and time and time again, the same cards keep coming up, or the same message will come across. One of my cards that I love in my tarot deck, I'm going to get her as a tattoo one day, is the Queen of Pentacles. She is hardcore my jam. And lo and behold, flipping through my tarot deck this morning, she's also one of the cards that came up.
Well, of course. Funny enough, as you were talking, I just pulled the 10 of Pentacles out of my Shapeshifter deck.
Oh, I love that. What's the imagery on that?
Oh, she is a beautiful dragon.
Dragons!
holding a golden apple, and there are golden apples on the tree behind her. In the air, there are 3 swans that are flying, and they have a little basket with flower petals in them.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Adreyauna, what you got in front of you, girl?
Okay, so I'm sitting next to my drawer of decks. So the first deck that I pulled out was my an oracle deck created by one of my favorite people in the world. Her name is Genesis, and it's called Je suis la lumière. I am the light. And the 2 cards that came out were Be of Service and Authenticity. And hello.
Nice.
Hello.
Nice.
For any of my readers out there that do that for a living, God, isn't that just the most appropriate thing?
Okay, and then I also have my bone set, and Yes.
I was
Yes.
hoping.
I have come out of the closet about my bones.
Yes.
And I might pull out another deck, but right now these are the two that are just like, hey, hey.
What do the
Wow.
bones have to say?
Well, let us see.
Ooh, live action, people.
I'm still learning. I'm
Yes.
still a beginner. So we will just see what comes up. But let's see.
I love how jingly they are.
Yeah.
I was going to say that sound is very gratifying.
Yes.
A little bone reading ASMR for you.
Okay. Okay, so I pulled out 3 pieces. I have a coyote bone that came out. We also have a beautiful shell and an African mask. So
Ooh.
to me, this speaks about like having courage in not being afraid to just like show yourself. There's also a lot of like earth energy in here with that coyote and that mask being made of wood. And then, of course, the water spirits are always present because I have a lot of water. Guardians around me. And then also, there's something in there about that coyote. I guess we'll see how that unfolds in this conversation.
Right.
I
Oh,
got
how
some strong feelings
fascinating.
about coyote.
Yeah. As
Mm.
soon as you said coyote, I was like, okay.
I
Let's
see you.
Speaking of, my fabulous husband is currently messaging me. He is coyote energy for sure.
There you
Mm.
go.
Soon as you said coyote, he sent me a message and I had to giggle about it. So
Oh,
we'll talk
how
a little
fun.
more about coyote later, but I just thought that was really timing wise very appropriate.
Yes.
Yes. So, ladies, let's back up a little bit. I know we all have our favorite forms of divination that we're kind of pulling out. I just wanted us to have a quick conversation about what you feel about divination in general. Like, what is it that we are tapping into, and what are we listening to? What are the messages that we're looking for, and things like that?
That's a really good question.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that comes to mind for me, and as we were kind of just chatting before we really started recording here, I kind of said something about it. I almost find I do a lot of divination going backwards. Like I sometimes for me, I find the future messages are really confusing. And when something happens, or like I'm anxious about something, or even anxious after something has happened, that's when I really tend to lean on my cards, probably most specifically. Yeah, I don't we'll see where we go with that thought too, but that's my first impression of that question.
Okay.
Mm.
What do you think, Adriana?
I think for me, divination is like decoding what the universe is trying to tell me.
Yes.
And I think that I use it in multiple different ways. I like what you're saying about the retro because I definitely do that quite often. But I also will kind of, so there's the validation piece of what I'm already feeling or thinking about, especially when it comes to like a ritual or some sort of spell. I will use that to kind of like validate, like, yes, this is the path that you need to go, or bitch, don't do that. You're going to have some bad consequences.
That part.
Yes.
And then also divination, practicing divination to me has been very, it's almost like an offering is the best way I can describe it, because I think of who I come from and the people where we were, you know, all of us being colonized in some sort of way by an Abrahamic religion, and not being able to practice our divination just out there and it being seen as crazy, and now it's all commercialized. Like there's a fucking McDonald's commercial about tarot, and I'm not gonna go down that I'm not gonna go
Yeah.
down that pathway. But so it's become like this uh act of self-love and veneration to my ancestors as well. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm thinking about like four different things at the same time currently. About the question and also about what you just said about giving veneration to your ancestors. So I'll backtrack there. I really think that that was a good way to explain it. How you said about decoding messages from the universe. It is my personal belief that we have the connection with spirit already within us, and that we actually already have the answers. We just have to figure out how to find them or how to listen to the message. So I feel like divination is a way for us to access that part of our brain, our psyche, our spirit that has that information already. In a way that we can understand, that our human form can really grasp and, understand, put things into pictures and words and symbols and things that we will get. And with that in mind, one of my favorite decks is the Shapeshifter deck. It's a DJ Conway deck, and I really like it because I have a very strong connection with animals and animal spirits. So in this deck, in the Shapeshifter deck, each form that you see, it has a human and animal part to it. And so it's a good way for me to recognize, in that person that there's this animal, as a part of it. Like earlier, I said the dragon, and we're all like, ooh, like we know what dragon means. We might not know what this lady with blonde hair means, but we know what dragon means. And I just pulled a card that's called the circle, and it has an owl and it has a bobcat and has a snake and it has a fish. And so we kind of understand what those animal symbols mean and what they mean to us. So for me, working with a shapeshifter deck or animal oracles are more natural because they're symbols that I recognize already. And then going back to talking about, having a veneration for your ancestors, DJ Conway, typically her decks are kind of Celtic based. So it's imagery that I recognize from studying, Celtic traditions and paths over the last 20 years. And that has been one of the belief systems that has resonated strongest to me because it is my family's heritage. So again, there's symbols that I already know and recognize. Maybe partially because of my ancestors. I might have that connection with my ancestors as well, that understanding, that ancestral understanding and knowledge, that I'm able to kind of recognize those messages from these pictures.
Well, damn.
I know, right? Like, woo! But it's so the truth because like that's something that I really like when you pull out a deck of cards or do any sort of divination or anything like that, when you talk about like who are you talking to?
Mhm.
I find for me that like my oracle decks are tend to be more of like me talking to my higher self.
Mm.
Whereas I guess I put a little more ceremony towards the tarot cards. Like I try not to be as fickle with them because I feel like we're with tarot tapping into something a little maybe not different or bigger. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is there, but like it feels the oracle decks are a little more casual, like as if like I'm having a conversation with myself, whereas like the tarot truly feels like I'm talking to not an entity, but
Mm.
can you help me put
Mhm.
words to that?
Mhm. The imagery, like listening to you speak, it reminds me of like me talking to myself in the mirror versus me talking to my ancestors at the altar. Like that's the imagery
One,
that
there
comes
we
to mind.
go. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. I So when you talk to your oracle, you said that it's more casual. Can you tell a difference when the messages come in for oracle versus for your tarot?
Oh, for sure. Because I tend to use them in conjunction.
Mm.
Like I'll pull however, 3 to 5 tarot cards for whatever I'm feeling called for at the moment, and then I tend to pull oracle cards like on those cards. So like before, I just recently took a little trip. And right before the night before I left, I pulled 5 tarot cards and 3 cards from like my goddess oracle deck, this one that I really, really enjoy. And those oracle cards I find help me pull together the story that the tarot cards were trying to tell a little bit better.
Mm.
So like it's kind of like both. Like I guess it's like a textbook and like Spark Notes kind of.
Okay.
Mm.
Ooh,
Mhm.
yeah,
I
I
like
like
that.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that I also like that. That just came. Thank you, Spirit. That just came straight from them, not from me. So
Well, you know, like you bringing up that imagery of Spark Notes versus textbook is so important to divination, like that ability to storytell, because a lot of our ancestors were oratory people, and that's how we shared our messages, who we are, our lineages, and all of that. And so being able to like create a story from whatever the cards or candles, water, whatever the fuck you use, is so key to really, you know, gleaning the whole message.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. And I would agree with that as well. If you look at the tarot deck, like whenever you're studying tarot traditionally, it tells a story from the beginning to the end of the deck. Like we have the major arcana cards and it goes through, you know, basically the history of the evolution of a being. And then we have these suits that help us, you know, describe the message. But then as you go through the suits, each of the suits then, you know, are as we go to 10, you know, 0 to 10, and then we have, you know, the royalty of each of those suits and things like that. They're all telling a story. It's a progression. And we are, you know, as people, as beings, we are constantly progressing. So one day we might be the fool and the next day we're the hierophant. We can take a look at those cards as a way for us to understand like our part in the journey and like where we are now and maybe where we are going in the future.
Well said. Very, very well said. Another note that I wanted to touch on just a little specifically about the tarot, because as we've said many times, that's what brought the 3 of us together. I think it's really important to remind people that whatever, obviously, we've all talked about a bunch of different decks already just in the not even 20 minutes that we've been recording. Imagery is just so incredibly important because it's different for everyone and everybody processes that imagery very differently. So a deck that I use very often, it's the Golden Art Nouveau Tarot, and it's really just an updated version of the Rider-Waite. They really try to stay true to the Rider-Waite Smith imagery, which is something that I have been for too many years, not too many years, but a lot of years. I always try to go back because I want to be like, you know, a purist and really get into the right. I cannot get into it. I pick them up. I have a little one I look at all the time and it just fills me with distaste. But this other deck that I have, that it still holds the same colors, the same imagery, but for some reason my brain and my eyes like that a lot better. It's okay to whatever imagery works for you. That's all that matters, because there's a lot of tarot teachers out there that are going to tell you you can only learn from the Rider-Waite Smith deck, and I vehemently disagree with that.
Word.
I agree. Okay, so now I'm curious. What is it? Why does it just not ride with you?
The only comparison that I can compare it to is like just different tattoo styles. There is this one specific, like that kind of old Sailor Jerry tattoo type that it's beautiful and I have deep respect for it. You will never see that on my body because I don't like it. And it's the same thing for the cards. Like it's just that these images, while extremely similar, evoke different emotions for me, and that's what you need to get from your divining tool, no matter what it is. One of the
Absolutely.
things that really shook that for me was with animals. I've said it many times that animals I work very deeply with. About maybe a year and a half ago, maybe a little less than that, somewhere between a year and a half ago, I had a run-in with a poisonous snake with this big ass copperhead in my front yard. And I had never really come in contact with a poisonous snake before, but I saw the snake. I had a reaction, and my first thought was, I hope that blank person that was in my life at the time is not the poisonous snake. That was a huge thought for me that really made me start to, but then to compare to, I just had something happen just a couple of weeks ago that I was looking for a very clear answer of poisonous v not poisonous. And here comes along my porch this little non-threatening, tiny, non-poisonous snake. Another very clear message to me that the thing that I was worried was maybe poisonous or not poisonous, not poisonous. So like, it's all about just evoking, like I said, evoking the emotions and the imagery to get the message across clearly to you, no matter what that is.
Yes. Yes. I love that. And like I said, for me personally, I really do have a strong connection with animals. So I feel like when I see animals out in nature, specific ones at different times and things like that, that they could be sharing a message with me as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
100%. And what was the one animal that when we started maybe talking about this in the next coming episodes, what did we talk about?
The snake.
We talked about the little snake. And then I pulled out one of my favorite animal medicine decks that one of my friends got me for my birthday this past year. What's the first card that I pull up? The snake. So they have this sweet little kind of saying for all of the different animals. So this is what the snake has to say. Snake, come crawling. There's fire in your eyes. Bite me, excite me. I'll learn to realize. The poison transmuted brings eternal flame. Open me to heaven and heal me again. Oh, emotions. Good God, I'm going to cry. I'm going to mute myself.
Yes.
Give us your tears. I absolutely love that. That reminds me of a dream I had. You know what? Okay. This is a lot of thoughts at once. But I just want everybody listening to be encouraged to try so many different divination forms until you find one that fucking sticks.
Yes.
Okay. Because yes,
Agreed.
we are card nerds over here, but you hear us talking about the animals. We talked about the bones. Annalisa will put crystals in a bag and pull that bitch out and read your whole life. Like there are
Yes. Yes.
so many ways, and divination can come literally from anything.
Guys,
Anything.
license plates.
Hello.
I use license plates every goddamn day. My guides will send me a triple number on a license plate, and I'm like, okay, whatever, and I'll ignore it. And they'll send me the same. Now, we all know how many license plates are out in the world. What are the odds of seeing 2 license plates with 444 on some random street in Abita Springs, Louisiana, within 5 minutes of each other? They're like,
Truth.
You're not paying attention.
That right there. That right there.
But I think that brings up a great point. Excuse me, that Adreyauna was saying. For people that aren't really sure, about tarot cards or oracle decks or things like that, try them out. Try all the things and see what resonates, because the messages are there. You just have to be open to receiving them. And it doesn't necessarily mean you're doing something wrong. Like, don't beat yourself up. We're not saying that. Just try something different and see maybe that resonates for you more. I have a huge connection with fire. And so when I first started, getting into my spirituality, candle magic, was big for me. And so I would, stare into the flame while I was burning the candle for whatever, purpose or ritual, and stare into the flame and get a message that way. Or we're having a bonfire and I'm looking in the fire and see images. There really are no limits to how the universe can share the messages with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I want to talk to you about this candle divination, because I think this might be the first time I've heard you mention that.
I am a fire girl.
Yes. Because I do too love the candle magic. How have you noticed that messages come in differently for your candles or fire in general versus for cards?
Yeah, it's typically more like a single picture, like a flash that I'll see. And whether that's, in the flame itself or in how the wax looks whenever it's coming down, like as it's dripping. Or I've even had an instance where the candle burns completely down and there's all of the wax and it forms a certain image. the first time that ever happened to me, it was right after my uncle had passed away, and I was burning a candle for him. It was in my fireplace at my first apartment. The fireplace wasn't functional, but I thought it would be a safe place, to burn a candle, and had it on a little dish. And I was very concerned about him because he made a lot of poor choices for his life and unfortunately passed away from a drug overdose. And I was just very concerned about, his eternal soul and what was going to happen to him and things like that. And when the candle burned down, I did burn a black candle. It burned completely down, and the puddle of wax, it looked like a raven.
Wow.
That was the first time that I really saw the raven,
Wow.
And it was like, okay, well, he is where he's supposed to be, was the message that I got. Like, don't worry, it's not anything like in turmoil, or he's like in hell, or all these scary things. Like, he's where he's supposed to be. And it was a message of peace. That whatever was going on in his brain and his life, that he made him, he made all these poor choices for himself. He's not fighting with that turmoil anymore.
That's powerful.
So it was a message in the wax from the candle that I was burning.
Yeah. I love candles.
Yeah. So whenever you're like, you set your intention before you burn them, whether you're, you're rolling them, you're putting herbs on them, or you're drawing things into the side of the candle. I like to do that, draw sigils into the candles, or whatever you're doing with it. Like, as you're doing that process, you're meditating and thinking on your intention. Well, then as the candle itself is burning, then you can watch the candle, like how it burns and things like that. It can share a message with you about whatever it is that you're doing, what your intention is.
I used to keep like this journal when I was first starting to do candle magic. And when I would burn candles, I would like watch it every single day. And each day I just jot down little things that would come up. And by the end of the candle being burned, there would be just like buckets of information that it just didn't click to me in the moment that I was writing. But once I get done with the candle, it just settles, I guess, in my spirit, and it makes so much sense. But then there came this period where I was overly watching my candles, I guess is the best way I can describe that. And the energy just felt like, bitch, leave me alone. Let me breathe. Let me breathe.
Yeah.
A watched candle never burns.
I can see that though, because we always say that with spell work and things like that, that once you set your intention and you put it into motion, you need to just let it be, give it the chance to work. It's like our seed analogy. You're planting a seed, you don't want to keep like pulling back the dirt to see if it's growing. Like, you have to give it the chance to grow.
Right.
And
So
then
that's
also,
what your candles were saying too.
Yeah.
Like, give me a chance.
Like, let me live, please. But that also goes to divination. Like, don't keep asking the same question over and over and over again.
Yes.
Because, like, how annoying is that? It's a relationship. How annoying is it to keep asking your best friend, do you love me? Do you love me? Do you, what?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And the cards, especially my tarot cards, and I think sometimes that's why I tend to give them more ceremony, because they will, and tarot cards, I say this with like deep respect, they get sassy. Like, if there's something, like, I'll get these really muddled. I know I always, when people ask, they're like, what kind of question should I ask? Like, ask a muddled question, you get a muddled answer. And like, sometimes they'll just stop. Like, you wait for the moment that, like, okay, like, this is the time to flip the cards. And I'll find myself like shuffling for like 5 upwards minutes. And they're like, I'm not giving you an answer today. Put me down. I'm done.
Yeah. That is. I'm just laughing because, like, yeah, same.
They're like, done. I done told you.
Over it.
Well, and on the flip side of that too, there have been moments that, like, looking for answers. I'll forget that they're there almost sometimes, and like I can pick up the deck and within an instant, like there's a card that just like comes shooting out. Like, we've been sitting here waiting for you to ask. Like, why haven't you? You know, like you said, it's a relationship and it's got to be nurtured respectfully both ways.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think part of divination that makes it so fun is the fact that, you know, you do get these different personalities with whatever tool you're using. And that is
Mhm.
exciting as fuck to me to just figure out, like, okay, what's the vibe of this tool? What's the vibe of that tool? And what you'll find is that for different situations, you'll feel drawn to different certain tools. Like, I know I'm not going to go to my tarot
Yeah.
cards to connect with my ancestors because they will
Right.
straight up animals, water, fire, that's their jam. But like tarot, don't even try it because that's not what vibes with us. And part of, you know, when you get a new tool is being able to, what do they say, interview your deck, but you know, interview your tool, try to figure out like what are you here to teach me? How are you helping me heal? What are, you know, whatever question you want to ask. But that is just so much fun to me, getting new tools. Ugh.
Yeah. Yeah. And
It
I would
really
say,
is.
you know, you pick it because, you know, the certain tool or deck or whatever, because it resonates with you for some reason, like it's the artwork or some wording or something like that, but you don't really know it. And you can't know if it's the right tool for you until you try it.
Exactly.
And so I think that's why why we all have like multiple decks, because it's like you don't know if it's going to be the right thing for you until you get it out and try it.
Yeah.
And something that like I always do and I would recommend to others as like a way to connect with your new tool is just going through like every day, just pull one card. And you know, I don't always take the card with me to work, but I'll take a picture on my phone. And like I have the background on the phone set to it's actually the moon card right now. But I have the background on the phone set to a picture of whichever tarot card that like I'm trying to learn about. You know, at that time. So I'm like constantly getting reinforcement of like seeing that image and processing like, what does this mean to me? What is the message that this has in store? And what does this card like really mean and resonate with? Because I might know what the moon card means in a different deck, but maybe in this deck, it means something different. Or something a little different, you know, a different message to share, or I relate to it differently because of the imagery. This moon card that I have the picture of on my phone, it's you know, shapeshifter deck. So it is two people with wolf heads howling up at the moon. At the full moon. Yep, that's what they doing. Ow!
Is that the card that you would say you are associating with the most right now? Because like I talked about how like the Queen of Pentacles, like if I'm ever having a moment of doubt about the cards or whatever I'm reading, she pops up like, come on, you know who we are. Like this is like, that's my girl. For both of you, who's that card for you?
Ooh.
I don't know. I think
Damn.
that moon card tells me that I already know the answers, like tap into my emotions and quit thinking too fucking much.
Yeah.
Quit thinking about it too much. Damn it. You have it inside of yourself. Like the knowledge and the answers are already there. You're just I definitely get crippled by analysis paralysis on the daily. Like I overthink everything. And so it's like, well, you have the fucking answers. Like how are you feeling about it and what are you going to do with it? You know what you're supposed to be doing. That's what my deck tells me almost every time. You know what you should be doing.
Right. Why are you asking me? You already know.
Yeah. You already know. Just do it.
Oh man, I love that. The moon
And
card.
like Michelle said last week, whenever, you know, I was talking about the card, the attracting energies, and I'm like, you know, we're going to meet the people that we're supposed to meet. No, they're already there. They're already in your life. And it's like the tarot deck, they're telling you, you already have the answers. You know the answer. It's inside of you. But again, the tools are a way for us to remember the message.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What about you, Adriana? You got a card?
Naturally, my instincts go to the Empress. I am so in love with the Empress card, and I think I learn something new every time that I sit down and study the Empress card. She's just so open, and also she's sitting the fuck down, and that is a lesson that I am
Yes.
constantly learning. No matter how much love work, self-healing, trauma work that I do on myself, I am still learning how to just sit down and be and receive. And so I think that that's just, I guess that's one of my life lessons, and I think that the Empress really comes in to teach me that, and how she has everything that she needs, plus some. And she's a creator, and she's just so many things I could go on about the Empress, but she's my girl. And I think on a bad day, the Ten of Swords, yeah, I don't need to say much about that. Just Ten of Swords. Yeah.
That's a rough one.
It is.
So I'm sitting over here giggling because I pulled 2 cards from my Golden Nouveau deck. It was the Queen of Pentacles, and the other one, who I hadn't talked about yet, is the Empress.
Yes.
Yes.
This is how you know you can't make this stuff up, people.
At all.
I love it. I love it.
So the other deck that I want to talk about here real quick, I was mentioning it before when we were chatting, but I wanted to mention on the recording here about the Urban Crow Oracle. I really like this one because for me, I grew up in an area where I lived out in the country, and it was really easy to have a connection with nature. Like literally for fun, I would just go out in the woods and sit and watch the animals. Like that was how I lived my life. And then a few years ago when I moved to New Orleans, I became a city dweller. And that was definitely a mind shift for me because I wasn't having as much of a connection with nature and the outdoors and things like that. And over time, I've realized that it is all around me, and especially here we have so many beautiful parks in the city, and trees everywhere, and things are always pollinating. But it does take a little bit of extra time to make that connection with nature when you live in a city. And so one thing I really like about this deck, the Urban Crow Oracle, is the imagery is all crows in the city. And we've talked about this before, how much we love our crows that we know, that we get to know over time, and how they share messages with us. But this deck in particular, all the imagery is crows within the city, and they each tell a story. Each of the cards in the guidebook, it has a little story associated with it. So for example, this card I just pulled, it was in reverse, but is the warning card, and it is a crow sitting on the top of a light with his beak open. He's calling, and it looks like it's morning time. And there is actually a fire. So the crow is like, giving the warning, like, hey, everybody, wake up and get the fuck out of here. Everything's going to burn down. But like I said, I really like the imagery that it is, the crows in the city. And the next card I just pulled is battle. So it shows 2 crows like literally fighting over their treasure that they found on the ground. So anyway, I just wanted to say, like, there are different tools for different purposes, and different ones are going to resonate with you at different points in your life too. So just because, like, in the past, I always liked a certain deck, now because I'm living somewhere different and I'm having a different experience in my life, then different tools become more appropriate.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely. Because 20 years ago, Becky, that deck would probably not have nearly the meaning, both with the Raven and the urban part of it, that it has so much more significance now. I do want to talk about how it was warning and battle were the words.
Yeah.
So that, as you were talking about that, I find that actually really appropriate for what's going on right now for everybody. And part of why we've been doing this podcast for going on 4 months here now. And I have certainly had moments of, this is silly, this is fickle, why are we doing this? There's so much other stuff, blah blah, whatever. But I think it's important for us and the listeners to remember that part of the message we're trying to get across here is about staying true to your magic, because I think everybody being open and honest, and like Adriana said about the courage to show yourself, like I think that's the only thing that's going to save the world, truthfully. Like everybody's got to tap into whatever their own personal magic is, because it's there for a reason and we all need it. And now, okay, I guess we're going to talk about coyote. That word's like glowing on the page. So where are we going to go with that now, guys?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay.
So the battle, I'm going to connect this to coyote. Battle and warning. Battle, like, crows are really territorial, and they in the book, it's like you may find defensive feelings are brewing, whether from within or external sources. And then a warning, we have there was smoke, there were wildfires in eastern Washington that were infiltrating the city, and the crow was scouting out and he was on the lookout, and it's their job to spot signs of danger and to warn others. And I feel like that is part of what we're doing. Like you said, Annalisa, we are warning others against mediocrity, against going with the flow and being quiet and not being their true authentic selves. Because for us to change in this world and in this universe, we have to be bold and we have to be our unique selves. We can't be tampering ourselves because somebody might not like what we're doing, or I'm too loud, or I'm too bold, or I'm wearing bright colors, or have bright red hair, or whatever. We can't give a fuck anymore. Like we can't care about that. That's what the warning is that we have to be ourselves for things to get better.
Yeah. I think that is so key, because a lot of society is operating in like a very, we are traumatized. There's no other way to describe that. And in order for us to get out of that survival mode, we first have to have a stability within ourselves to then be, all of these extra things. But finding stability, finding homeostasis within yourself and your spirit is a fuck ton of work, and it's hard and it's heavy. And I think divination comes in to validate, like, you're not crazy, you're actually on the right path. What you intuited about this situation is very much correct, and here's how you can go about this situation. Here's what action steps you need to take, so that we can be those courageous people, that we can stand in our own, and be the leaders in our lives. Because that's what we're supposed to be doing anyway. And I think the coyote is it's still an animal that I'm learning. So I would love to know what y'all animal psychics have to say. But
I was waiting for you to finish up because he's yelling at me. So coyote doesn't give a fuck what others think about him. Like coyote is, if you think about like the myths about coyotes and the messages, he is the trickster. He's the one that goes along the outside of the fire and steals things for himself and things like that. He's always like on the run and like looking out and things like that lookout crow was doing. But like I said, coyote doesn't give a fuck that people think that those things about him. He just is coyote, and he does what he feels is right in each situation. So I'm not saying that it's like a great attribute for us to be like trying to trick everybody all the time, or for us to be like deceitful or anything. But what coyote does is that he is authentically himself.
Yeah. Take off the mask.
Yep.
And he doesn't give up. Like, look at just in
Yep.
pop culture, you know, we think of like Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner. Like
Mhm.
Becky was saying, like he always does what he thinks is the best in that moment. But like that
Right.
also holds lessons that like maybe sometimes we should like check ourselves. Like that's what I've got my the medicine cards. They're wonderful by Jamie Sands and David Carson's. Highly recommend to a lot of people. The little poem that they have is Coyote, you devil, you tricked me once more. Must I sit and ponder what you did it for? And that hits me on like the self-narration part. I was watching, couldn't even tell you what show it was recently. I was piddling about doing something, but my brain picked up on that we are unreliable narrators of our own stories sometimes. And that really struck true that like I'm someone who like we were talking about overthinking earlier. Hello, that's one of my big like self-sabotaging thoughts. And that is something that I think the Coyote also teaches us about, like maybe you shouldn't push forward with that idea just because you think it's a good idea. And that is where the divination comes in for me, is that it helps me to check myself and whether I'm actually being a reliable narrator of my story.
Right.
Oh, I love that. I love that. That, and you know, that trickster word just makes me think about like all these different trickster spirits that we have in, you know, each different cultures. And I'm specifically thinking about Anansi, the African spider spirit, and how these trickster deities, like Loki, even, and how they tend to be some of the wisest spirits. They tend to be very honest and upfront. So when you need guidance, that's the one who you're going to want to go to, because they see through all the bullshit. All the bullshit. They're not going to hold your hand and all of this, and they're going to show you an even more creative way to get around a situation, or, you know, to get a particular result. So that coyote spirit is making me think about all those different trickster spirits that we have.
Yeah, and they're always very creative as well.
Yeah.
Well, because they have a different, I find those deities, they have like a different confidence about them. Like you think of, for comparison's sake, like Zeus, right? He is like got the biggest ego, sorry, Zeus, of any of them. Like, you know, don't tell him he's wrong. Whereas like the Coyote and Loki, they've been checked, they've been defeated, they've had to be creative. That's the only way they know how to survive.
I like that they've already been defeated,
right?
But they're still here. Yeah,
exactly.
Yes.
Well, it's a good analogy for what happens to us. Like so many things that we do in our life, we feel like we failed, but you know what we did? We got back up. You know, we're able to move on and then think about, okay, was that the best course of action, or maybe I should do something different before I try it again.
Wow.
Guys. Whoa.
I told you Coyote had something to say.
Didn't it? I'm so glad that came up. Oh, I love it.
So I guess the only thing I wanted to ask y'all was, what divination tool do y'all want to learn next?
Ooh.
I really love bones, and I really think that working with
exactly
bones,
what I was gonna say.
that working with bones would be a really good like next step for me, because I literally have a bird rib sitting on my desk right beside me.
Cool.
I have bones everywhere. I always find them, and they say different things to me. I have a good connection with bones because they connect me to the ancestors and the spirits of the animals and the people who have gone before us. So I think that it would be a really cool thing to delve into, divining messages from them.
Yeah, I have to concur that because like I've been hardcore fighting the urge over the last like 8 months there on the side of there's a highway near my house where there a deer looks like it got hit by a car and like it slowly rotted away and like this whole deer skeleton. I pass it every day and I'm like,
Oh, girl.
I gotta go get me some. There's not a good spot. There's no like shoulder. It's a real busy highway. So like I'm trying to like navigate like how. So that makes me feel a lot less weird about why I've had these urge to literally stop on the side of the road for deer bones. Like, okay, message
Girl,
heard.
I'm there. Hold me up. I'll go with you.
Well, the next time you come up, we should go harvest those deer bones.
Yes.
Lols. Yeah, just that's I have so many thoughts, so many words.
Right?
Yeah,
Just doing witch things. It's
just doing
fine.
witch things, weird as a beer. So that I just recently went to Santa Barbara and I got to see the Pacific Ocean for the first time. And I went to a crystal shop. I bought a bunch of other stuff, but let me tell you the amount of rocks and feathers and shells that I collected from the beach. Like, ooh,
Yeah.
Adriana, when did you get involved with bones? Because today is the first time I heard you talk about them.
I know. So I just have to like straight up have a disclaimer and say that the deeper I get into my spiritual practice, the more closer to my heart things get, and I'm more private than I was before. And it's a phenomenon that I'm having to like struggle with. So okay, there's that. Secondly, so I got this bone deck probably almost a year ago and had it sitting on my altar for like 6 months. Because I had gotten that urge of like, oh, I need bones. Oh, I need bones. And it just like it just came out of nowhere, but I've always been interested in them. And even in some of my dreams from several years ago, I've had dreams about an animal doing a bone reading. Like that's some fucking wild shit, first of all. So there's that. So I knew it was gonna come up, but I didn't know how soon it was. So got that urge to get a bone set, got it. And I was honestly scared to touch it. That's why it sat on my altar for 6 months, because I was like, this is above my pay grade. I don't know. But I think that whole time that it was there, I would look at it, I'd shake it up. I love the sound just like y'all do. And I would shake it to kind of like, I don't know, I guess call down the ancestors, the way I can describe it. And then I eventually started opening up and just like playing with the different shells and coins and bones that I have in there, and just letting them speak to me in the same way that I did with my tarot deck. Instead of like automatically trying to go look up like, what does this mean? What does this mean? I just let them speak to me and give me their stories.
Cool.
So it's definitely still new, but since I started using it more frequently, I have found probably 4 different bones just like, walking Bailey. And I'm like, okay, cool. This is for me. All right.
This is my bone now. That is so cool. That is so cool.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I'm excited.
Yeah.
For y'all to get into it. And this is just, I guess, my own ancestry speaking, but whatever y'all get drawn to, live it, love it, live, laugh, love it. And also, like, be curious as to like what type of bones or even not bones that you get drawn to, because like I said, I got a hella water spirits behind me, so shells, beach, sand are all the things that I'm drawn to. So I just can't wait to hear about that journey.
And I love this whole time their spirit's been reiterating things, because as you were saying that, I literally wrote bones and like then stopped and things like, so it's not just the bones, it's anything like nature. So I want to get one more quick question, and we're coming up on an hour here in just a second, but any divination tools that either of you will not touch?
Ooh, the controversy.
Right? I know. So
I haven't found anything that I'm absolutely like, no. I will not use this. There are certain things that don't really resonate with me very well, but
Mm.
I don't have anything that's like a hard no that I know
Mm.
of. There
I
might
don't
be,
know
but
if
I just don't
it's
know what it is.
I don't know if
Yeah.
it's my like just Catholic upbringing, but like Ouija boards, I have never felt
Okay.
no.
I second that. I
Okay.
Like
second
just
that.
this yeah. That's the first thing. Pendulums for me is actually the other thing. I know there's a lot of people out there who really jive on pendulums. We do not care for each other. We don't
Yeah.
yeah.
I
Interesting.
I would say that's one of my preferences, that I don't really use pendulums because I
Mm.
just don't, for me, it doesn't really resonate. If I need to use a pendulum, I really already know the answer.
Totally.
Mm.
Totally.
So I just don't use it. But my feelings towards Ouija boards would not use one that is like out of a box,
Mhm. Mhm.
mass
Mhm.
manufactured for sure.
Mhm.
Have used spirit boards in the past, but with a group and with
Mm.
experienced people. We did use a lot of protection,
Mm.
Mm.
and we actually did have a not so positive entity try to come through,
Mm.
masked as
Mm.
one of our ancestors.
Mm.
Mm. That
So
right
Mm.
there, that's what makes me nervous.
that was a negative experience for Adam
Mm.
and I both, and so we don't really, either of us don't really touch them.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
I second that. It's just there's just been too much like bad, I don't want to call it bad, but just too much negative energy
Mm.
that people have put into it, and I don't have the
Mhm.
balls for it at all.
Right,
At
right.
all.
Well, and I
And
know
when
that
you're
there's a lot of people who feel that way about tarot.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
Yep.
Mhm.
Right.
And when you are using them effectively, I'm sure that there are tools that can be,
Mhm.
that other people can gain wisdom from. But when you're using like a spirit board or something like that, what you're doing is you're opening it up. So
Yeah.
Exactly.
you're opening up, you're creating basically a portal for other spirits and entities to come through. So if you don't have good protection, you're going to have something come through that shouldn't be
Mm.
there, or that you're
Mhm.
not ready to communicate with, you
Mhm.
know.
Mm. Mhm.
So that would just be my word of caution, because on this show particularly, we don't like to say no, don't do this or don't do that. We're not going to be dogmatic about it, but just from personal experience,
Mhm.
um be sure to protect yourself if you're going to use tools like that.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
that even goes for tarot too, because I've had some
Definitely.
wild experience where I have done some tarot readings at night and then just been
Mm.
completely restless and can't sleep, sick the next
Mm.
day, and it's because I didn't close the fucking portal. Did
Right.
not
Mhm.
close the portal.
Mhm.
So yeah, protection,
Yeah.
y'all.
It's so important because I
Yep.
will, even as much of an advocate for tarot as I am, I will have to say my very first experience with tarot was terrifying. But that's
Mm.
because that the people that it was with, they were not the best people, and like it was like
Mm.
out of a fucking movie, like the devil came up and the tower came up and whatever else, and like the sage popped and the window shut, and I was like,
Ooh.
it was scary, and I didn't go near that for a very, very long time. But like now it's much more personal. It's much more ceremonial for me. Like, and I keep
Mm.
especially my decks that I use frequently, they're in a special box with like lavender and crystals, and like the box is a protection, like all of this. It's kind of the same. There's a
Mhm.
lot of protection that goes in it. I don't take it lightly. One of the first conversations that I think Becky
Mhm.
and I ever had about tarot, we were out at a bar somewhere and there was a girl who busted it out, and we were both like, not a party trick, not
Mm.
a party trick.
I forgot
Mm.
about that.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Until this moment, so did I.
Yeah.
But that's how I feel about that, and I'm sure people who are advocates of a Ouija board feel the same way. That with the
Mhm.
proper
Mhm.
protection and ceremony about it, that it is perfectly safe. Because I feel that way about tarot now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I kind of feel that way about mirror scrying as well. But
Mm-hmm. Look at us, just down a rabbit hole. I love it. I love it. Is there anything that we didn't cover as we draw into the last 30 seconds of this hour?
We have 30 more seconds to cover another topic. Okay. I know it'll make us go a little bit longer, but I'd really like to hear about your, I guess, abbreviated version, Adriana, of you creating the deck. Like where you went spiritually with that. Like, how did you figure out what card to be what, and why did you decide to make it, and all those kind of things?
Oh, well, thanks for asking.
Oh man.
So it was a process. I knew I was supposed to be writing something. Got that urge. Okay, cool. Went down this rabbit hole of trying to write a book, an ebook, a spell, like so many different options. None of those stuck. Then I went back through all of my journals, and that is where I started highlighting just like these little moments where I'd write something really profound. And after I went through all of my journals, I realized I was like, this is a whole deck of cards, and boom, bitch, do some cards, do some cards. So I did that. And I tried to like write out, I was going to do like 100 card deck, but that was unrealistic for my brain. And I realized that it was focused around self-love after I put all of the insight together. And that journey of going through each card, it was almost like I was reliving the lesson, each card that I decided to work on for the day. And it was really good for me, yes, but also nobody told me that this was gonna be the process. And creating the sigil that is on the back of the card was also something that came to me after I'd done like a cleansing, and then I also did like a self-love bath, and I was just like sitting in the bath, and it was almost like this symbol just like was burning into my imagination, and I was like, okay, cool.
Oh wow.
All right. So then that sigil became a thing. And it just came together after that. Like once I started really narrowing down, like, okay, these are the core cards, these are the core messages. The name idea came last. That was the last thing that came up. And I was like, what? I can't do this. Because I had already been looking up producers, people to print my card, artists, all of that. And I was like, nobody is going to print different cards per deck with a name. Like, that's not realistic. But I found a printer that will, and that was it. That was go time for me to just go ahead and put it out there.
Wow. That's really cool. We definitely need to link to the deck in the show notes.
I highly recommend it, you guys. So as Adriana was talking about that, 2 more cards popped out. One of my favorites, and I love when this one comes out because Adriana, you like scream it in my head. And so here it is, everyone. Not everyone is gonna like you. Oh, fucking well.
Yes, that's the coyote.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then the other card was don't be ashamed of the healing that you need. Shame keeps you from connecting with the communities that want to support your growth.
Yes.
So just a little taste of the Love Note to Self deck, which I highly recommend. This next round that you're going to be releasing, Adriana, is that also people can get their names put on that as well?
I don't think so.
Okay.
But I think probably in the fall I'll open it back up, especially since it'll be like Christmas gift time. So I'll make it a little special.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. This new release that you've got coming out, what's going to be the date on that?
Oh shit, I have it. It's like later this month. Don't put a date on me because I'm an idiot.
Late June. Coming, everyone. Late June. Personalized decks later this year.
Right. Coming soon.
Yes.
Coming soon.
It's fine. Time is a social construct anyway.
Yeah, it is.
Exactly.
It really is.
Exactly. Oh, ladies, I love y'all.
Me too.
Yes.
Me too. This is a good conversation, y'all.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm glad we actually got to talk about divination this time.
Yes.
And some of our favorite tools. But I really think, hammering home the real message is that use whichever tools resonate with you as long as you do so responsibly.
Mm,
And you can gain access to the information from the universe that you already have within you.
I love that.
Well said.
Divine
Yeah.
responsibly.
Yes.
Ooh.
Cuckoo! Exactly. The messenger.
I love that. I love that.
Okay, well, we'll go ahead and sign off here before we keep everybody on too much longer. So everybody stay magical.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Magical Aspirations. Be sure to like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Magical Aspirations to keep up with the latest and the greatest from Annalisa, Adreyauna, and Reverend Raven, and to join in on the Magical Aspirations conversations. Come check out our website, magicalaspirations.com, to find bonuses from our guests, our Magical Aspirations blog, and to reach out to our magical hosts with questions, comments, reviews, or ideas for future episodes. We are so grateful for each and every one of you listening. Thank you again, and as always, stay true to your magic.